Hello everybody and welcome to one more video on big units. This time is not World War II. It is a video on one of my armies of the ancient times, one of my favorite periods, which is the Second Punic War between, of course, as everybody knows, Romans and Carthage. So this is the army that Hannibal brought from Libya and then picked more in Spain, then even more in Gaul, and then brought it into southern Italy. It already defeated the Romans in Lake Trasimene, in Trebia, also those famous battles. But now they are here on the plain of Cannae, and they are ready to battle with the biggest Roman army that Rome has ever, up to then, gathered, a total of 16 legions, which overcame the Carthaginians, at least by 2-1. So it's a big challenge for Hannibal. How will he do it? And everybody knows that it ended with a very big Roman defeat. So this is the generic disposition, if you want, of the Carthaginian army, and the general idea, before going to the models and before going a little bit to the brands that make this 20mm army, the idea of Hannibal, that you can see him here, mounted on his Baleus. You can see here what he was intending to do. First of all, as usual in ancient days, a swarm of light infantry, of course, head of the main corps of the army, which was in fact composed of Gauls and also Spanish infantry. And still, we don't know if it is done on purpose or not. But somehow the main line formed a band that was bending outwards of the army formation. Many believe, most of the historians believe that, and specialists believe that it was on purpose, because the idea was to withstand the advance of the mass of the Romans, as I will tell you later. What happened was that this line then bent inwards, as everybody knows, and then even before the Numidian cavalry struck the Roman cavalry, at least pinned it down somewhere here, the far more numerous Gaul and Hispanic cavalry did the same on the left flank. Then the Spanish cavalry, after defeating the smaller Roman cavalry contingent, came around Roman legions and helped the Numidians to destroy the Roman cavalry somewhere here. I'm filming a little bit of empty terrain because of that. Probably it was somewhere around here. So in the meantime, of course, this was a trap, as everybody knows. The main corps made of Gauls and main corps in terms of number, and Spanish infantry bent inwards. It was a time for those very famous Libyo-Phoenician phalanxes, including the Sacred Band, of course, to make a movement in order to surround the Romans here, and of course the other phalanx did the same to the around the Romans. In meantime, 16 Roman legions were trapped inside what became a pocket and were slaughtered almost to the last man. The Romans usually used very very rigid formations. They were believing that the superior technique of the Roman legionnaire would do its damage. In fact, it was a terrible way of making war. Let's remember that Republican Romans used a very long scutum. They were not very tall people, so they would hide almost behind the scutum, which was virtually the same size of the man. Then they would advance close to the enemy. They would throw a heavy pilum, then a light pilum. After releasing the pila, they would charge the opponent with their scutum, pointing to the opponent, and also showing only a little bit of the gladium, the gladius. The gladius would almost show nothing, so the opponent would never know from where the blow would come. So it was terrible to use Romans against whoever. But the truth is that the Iberians and the Gauls will sacrifice a little bit of themselves. I mean, facing all this onslaught of the Romans, this arch will bend a little bit inwards, as I told you. And the problem was that the Romans started to converge to the center, and they would start to not be able to move because there were too many. In the meantime, as I told you, the trap was set. The Carthaginians surrounded the enemy, and then started to push them inwards towards its own center, and row after row of Romans that almost could not breathe. It was a very, very hot day in this 216 BC year. It was the month was, let me just check. I think it was something around summer. Let me just check here. I think it was already very, 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 very hot. And let me just check in this. Yeah, it was August, exactly. So in August, as you can imagine, lots of dust. Romans without drinking water for several hours. It must have been terrible for them. Many of the Romans, in fact, that were found after the battle, many of them were, of course, chopped and cut to pieces. But in fact, many simply were suffocated. Others even buried their heads inside the earth to kill themselves. It was something. It must have been something pretty awful. Well, it ended with a big victory of this man here that I've showed you before, of Hannibal Barca, which is, of course, as everybody knows, one of the biggest genius of military history. Even if I mean, it's always a little bit difficult to call genius to someone who butchered so many. But in fact, Romans were doing the same, and whenever they could. So I mean, it was war, and unfortunately, it is still war. So let's see the figures. For instance, let's start. There are 4-5 main brands here. Everything that is metal is Newline Designs. There are also a few 15mm irregular miniatures, only a few, with their height a little bit increased with the help of some hot glue, because they tend to be very, 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 I mean, a little bit fatty figures for 15mm size. So some of them I use them because I think they are nice and give some differences in these groups, and they somehow make a difference. Then there are plastic brands as usual: AJT, Revell, Airfix, and Italeri. So I think 5 brands are here that you can see. Okay, so let's start with, for instance, with the Numidian cavalry. You can see here the command elements, and over there the Numidian cavalry, and I think all the cavalrymen, besides the one, not counting the ones of the command groups, are all AJT. Now let's go to the Gauls. The Gauls were made at least in 3 or 4 times, different times, because it's extremely boring to paint. I mean, I think I painted more than 200 different figures. Now let's pass the Spanish. Let's go again to the Gauls. So it was a little bit complicated, as you can imagine. So I think they were made 3 or 4 times. You have some Newline Designs. Here you have, and most of them are plastic, Revell and also some Airfix, and but mostly Revell and Italeri, okay, which are, as everyone knows, very nice figures. And here you can see more of them, okay? Different groups, again, Newline Designs, and the other of over there you can recognize the Airfix figures, more Newline Designs, Italeri, and Revell figures a little bit everywhere. The Spanish main group are the Scutari with those large shields. These ones were made a little bit, I think, after the other ones. They're a little bit more colorful, with the same color on the shields. But most of them, as you can see here, they're made in fact from different boxes, because AJT made them in different periods of time, and they are slightly different, and they are in fact Scutari. So you can also see some Newline Designs here for some Sartaburians, and more Scutari, and here some Kaitrati. There are not many, so I just used 3 stands of Kaitrati. Most of them, as you can see, are the AJT Scutari. Okay. Now let's go to the other side of the table and the Gallic cavalry. Again, Newline Designs, as you can see, and plenty of Italeri, okay, and also AJT, as you can see a little bit everywhere. I think these guys, they also must have been painted in 2 different times. Yeah, I think so. Sometimes I notice that because of the slightly different shades of the basing. Now for the Spanish, you see here the long shield cavalry, and everything here is AJT, and round shield cavalry. And these are in fact Newline Designs, this command group here. As you know, I mean, as I told you as I wrote in the title, this is created for DBM. So all these small bases are also called elements, as everybody know. Now let's go for the cream of the army, which is of course the Libya-Phoenician phalanx. Plenty of work, as you can imagine, because there's not a single shield that is the same as the other, so all of them are different. This creates a little bit, this makes a little bit, it's not a very easy job, as you can imagine. You see here, for instance, I mean, all of them are different, as you can see. And you see again, I mean, AJT, you can see here, Newline Designs, and AJT again, okay? At least I always place 1 metal figure in each stand, in order to have some weight, even if, for instance, there are entire elements that are completely Newline Designs. The Sacred Band that you can see over there with their white shields, their famous cream of the cream, le crème de la crème of the Carthaginian army. And here they are with their famous, oops, sorry to focus. Okay, the famous white shields, okay? And I placed them to the rear because I think it must have been their position as a kind of reserve. Also, there are some irregular miniatures. You see, they don't look bad. Only the shields are a little bit smaller. But if you place some, for instance, some extra height, as you can see here, look at the line of the base, but placed a little bit with hot glue. I just did I only have some, what, maybe it's 20 or 30 figures on the table that belong to regular miniatures, that were not, they belong to me, of course, but they were from regular miniatures at the beginning before I paid them, of course. And you also see some Sacred Band AJT figures. And the same here, you can see here on the other phalanx, you can see the same here with a mix of Newline Designs and over there a couple of irregular miniatures, and most of them, I mean, not most of them, part of them at least, are of course AJT. The command group is everything is Newline Designs. You can see here Hannibal on top of his Baleos. You can see here is I wrote it down for not to forget, and you can see his trusty Maharbal, okay. And then you see some citizen cavalry. I mean, that I imagine that could have been together with Hannibal, even if this citizen cavalry is more useful for the Third Punic War. and also another command element for you to place everywhere you want, anywhere you want. Sorry, and then the light infantry. You see Newline Design again for these Numidians. Also AJT a little bit everywhere. Numidians again. More Numidians. You can see here plenty of these Balearic slingers. Also again a mixture of Newline Designs and AJT, and some Spanish Caetrati here, used as light infantry. Okay, here they are. I think everything is AJT. Of course, there are still a few things that shouldn't be here. In fact, for instance, the Celtiberians. I mean, some of them could be here. They are all Newline Designs, and their last row is AJT, but majority of them are Newline Designs, and they could be strengthening this line here. But in fact, as they are Lusitanian, Celtiberians, I still have to read a little bit more because in fact I don't really remember. But I think these guys are more useful to other wars and to other campaigns than this one. So there is here a camp which for DBM is mandatory. It reminds me the only tournament I made in my life, which was in fact a DBM tournament, and I remember placing my figures. It was, I don't know which army it was, 15mm army that a friend of mine. I think I don't know if I owned it at those days or if someone lent it to me. I think someone lent me an ancient army. I've made a very good disposition of my army. I don't know from which culture they were from, but it doesn't matter. So I started to play with my opponent. At first, I finished an opponent that knew even less than me how to play. Then I caught another one, and in 2 or 3 rows I was out because he simply advanced to one of the tips of the table and captured my camp, and it was all. I was done. After placing very beautifully my figures, convinced that I was being very historical about the issue. But in fact, I mean, it was a game, so a game is different from history, and so I lost very quickly. And you can see here some elephants, not for Cannae, of course. Hannibal brought elephants to Italy, but most of them died crossing the Alps. So these ones are of course much better to the third and first Punic Wars, especially of course thinking about Zama, which will be the last one that Hannibal will have against the Romans, which will of course seal the fate of Carthage. So this is it. I hope we have enjoyed a different army, and at least I hope that my explanations made some logic and helped you understand a little bit, for those who are not as familiar with ancient period, a little bit of this strategies that were, as you can see, even in the 3rd century before Christ, were quite well thought and extremely successful when these very courageous people were able to perform the will of their commanders. It was a pleasure. Bye bye. See you soon.